Hi, my name's Melina. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to do our November wrap-up. I don't know if you watched my last video, my November TBR, and I did have a list of books, as always, that I kind of tried to read throughout the month. I mean, sometimes I did, sometimes I don't, and sometimes I swap things out right after I record the video. That's mood reading for you. So last month I had Divine Rivals on my list, Magnolia Park's Long Way Home, The Housemaid is Watching, The Breakup Tour, The God of the Woods, One Dark Window, Us Against the Likes, The Cost of Forgetting You, The Co-op, and as my bonus add-on I did Sophie Cousin's new book, Is She Really Going Out With Him? So I think I did pretty well. So the only change that I did make immediately is that I swapped out The Housemaid is Watching for The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden because they're both by the same author, and my book club decided that that's the book we were going to do, and I didn't want to read two Frida McFadden thrillers in the same month. Other than that, I did try to stick to my TBR, but I knew for a fact I wasn't gonna end up reading it all because there were some books that like my friend ended up reading and she was like talking and gushing about so much that I knew that I wanted to read that instead of some other books that I had on my list. So right off the bat, I started my month. I forgot my book. Okay, so immediately I started my month off by reading Divine Rivals. I think I had started it when I was making my November TBR. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't really remember, but I read this. A lot of my friends have raved about it. I ended up doing a buddy read with my friend Christina, and I loved this. I devoured this book so quickly. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. I am not a fan of historical fiction whatsoever, and even though this is a historical fantasy romance with a magical like sub elements, I wasn't sure if it was going to be my cup of tea. I really thought that this was going to be different than what I expected it to be, but in reality I really liked it. I did find myself zoning out a little bit during talks about the War of the Gods. Especially in the beginning, I was just a little bit confused and I didn't really get it. I felt like it was kind of just thrown in there, but as the story progressed and they do a little bit more of a breakdown of the god system and the magic system in itself. I mean, it's not really a magic system, it is just gods. Like think of Greek gods, Roman gods, like that type of thing, but they're in their world. And so after that, I fully dived into this story. I read it so quickly. It got me really excited for the second book because of the way that it ended was a super major like shock. It was just like a crazy plot point where I was like, oh my god. I don't know why I didn't expect it. Maybe someone else did, but I didn't. And so I already know that for December I'm probably going to read the second one, which is what? I don't even remember what it's called. I don't think it's on here because I think I got this book when the first book came out, when it came out. I really enjoyed this. I think I would have rated it a 4.25 stars. I rated it really high initially, and then I thought about it, and just the fact that a 5-star read for me is pure perfection, or almost as close to perfect as you can get, and the fact that I found myself zoning out or just a little uninterested in the gods explanation or the explanation of the War of the Gods in general, I just felt like that wasn't a 5-star read. But other than that, I really enjoyed the writing. It was very beautiful and lyrical at points, and I found myself highlighting and annotating different parts of the book as I was reading. So I think a 4.25 is a good place to like leave this, and it leaves room for growth for the second book or for it to be worse. I don't know. I still enjoyed this. 4.25 stars. After Divine Rivals, I realized that I needed something a little bit lighter and a little bit less heavy and serious, which is pretty funny. I read Heartstopper number 5, which is the most recent release. I did end up reading Heartstopper number 4 a couple of months ago, and it was a lot heavier than I expected it to be, so I was a little worried going into this, but I did know that it was going to be a quick read regardless of whether they focus on a heavier topic or not. And I will say I do love Heartstopper, and all of the books are very highly rated, but this one was my least favorite out of all the books so far. I felt like something was lacking, and maybe because book number 4 was really excellent, something in this was, you know, it wasn't my favorite. I still rated this a 4 stars, so it's not like it's a bad story, and it's so fun to be back with Charlie and Nick and all of the favorite side characters, but still something was just, it was my least favorite out of the 5 books that are out so far, so take that as you will. Then I read an e-art that I received by Hannah Bird. It was The Cost of Forgetting You. I really enjoyed this. This one, all of her books deal with really heavy topics or really difficult things that humans go through. And this one dealt with a mix of grief with very dysfunctional families, as most of her books do. It also deals with like parents getting older. Like the main character's dad ends up having a version of dementia, and so I personally dealt with a grandparent who had Alzheimer's, and it's just a very challenging challenging thing to deal with and go through, especially with someone close to you. And I feel like maybe because I do have this personal experience, I really clicked with this one. I feel like unless you go through something really similar, she describes the situation and the feelings and the emotions so well, and the romance in it is so good. I did enjoy both plot points, but I will say that the past plot line was less exciting than the present. I was more interested in the present almost at all times, and usually when you prefer one plot line or timeline than the other, it does take away a little bit from the overall story. Nonetheless, I still really enjoyed it, and I did think like Hannah Bird has this great ability to write good small town romances, and this one was no different. I would rate this one probably either a 3.75 or 4-star. Like thinking it over again, I don't even remember what I initially put on Goodreads or Fable, but I did enjoy it. Like I said, the fact that half of the story is a different timeline, and I wasn't really like, I was trying to get through those chapters as quick as possible, get back to the present, that does take away. So I'm gonna leave it at 4 stars because she has a talent for writing, and just by itself, like if you're a good writer, that immediately makes me like the story more. So 4 stars. Then I think I talked about this in my last video, but my friend Marie did publish a book over in October, and I couldn't get to the art in October. I just had a busy month, and you know, I didn't have the time. And so in November I did read her book. I got the physical copy and it did come in, so that was really exciting. It was Us Against the Legs. It is a YA contemporary fiction, I would say, with a romance subplot, so don't go into this thinking that this is a romance. This is more of a self-discovery contemporary fiction. This follows Abby, who is a professional influencer, specifically a travel influencer, and it talks a lot about the anxiety and the pressure she feels to be perfect and be the best, because she feels overwhelming gratitude for the position that she's in. And as someone who ends up, she struggles with anxiety throughout the whole book, but I feel like as her follower count continues to increase, she struggles even more to try to become even more perfect. And you know, it's really challenging because I feel like imposter syndrome is such a real thing regardless of whether you're an influencer or not. And the way that Marie wrote anxiety in this is really realistic. I really understood a lot of these inner thoughts and the inner monologue and the feelings that she felt, because I know anxiety is very different from person to person. There's so many different symptoms and so many ways that anxiety can come out. I will say that in this one, I really related to Abby as a character in terms of with the anxiety aspect of things, and the sister relationship in this book was also really excellent. The family relationships, it's so interesting because it's true the way older generations maybe won't understand social media and social media as a career, and this did a really good job of combating so many different types of conflicts, and it just ties together really well, especially as her debut novel. I am so excited to see what else she does because this was really great. I recommend this one for anybody who enjoys YA. I think this is a great story for older high school, college, again, adults who do like YA. Our character is in her early 20s. I want to say she is 19 or 20, maybe even 21. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I really like this one. I think it was a good book, and I would rate this probably a 4.25 stars for sure. After this, I did take out The God of the Woods. I knew I wasn't going to get to it this month, and instead I read Phantasma. This book has been all over all of my feeds on YouTube, on Instagram, on Bookstagram. My friend raved about this book, and I knew that I wanted to read this now. I feel like this fall spooky vibes. I know I read this in November and not in October, but it's still the fall. It was gloomy, it was raining almost all month, and so it's kind of set the scene perfectly for a book like this. And this story follows Ophelia, who is a necromancer, or she becomes a necromancer after the passing of her mother. And she finds out that her mom was keeping some secrets that put their house at risk. So her and her sister are trying to resolve and figure out how they are going to save the house. And after her sister disappears, after a huge argument they have, she finds out that her sister went to these games. It's like these challenges, and they're called Phantasma. They travel all over the country to have these challenges, and people don't come out alive sometimes, but at the end, if you do win, you get one wish with no limitations, it seems. And so she knows that her sister probably went to Phantasma, and she was worried for her as the older sister, and she goes into Phantasma to go looking for her. Along the way, she meets Blackwell, that's his name. Blackwell. And from there, she goes through the challenges and tries to survive in hopes of finding her sister in these games, because because the contestants were separated by groups of like 10 or so, and so her sister was not in her group, and for her to potentially meet up with her sister, she has to do, I think, like 6 or 7 of these challenges. This book kind of gives me Hunger Games because of the challenges and the games and the puzzles, but this is very spicy. I do think that they did a really good job of putting in the spice where, not that it made sense, but it didn't make me cringe in a way that I wanted to forward through and just kind of skip over it, which I do with, you know, spice scenes are very, it depends, you know, sometimes it's needed and it makes sense, sometimes it's not needed but it still works. I feel like that's what this is. It wasn't necessarily needed, but it worked. I do wish there is a love interest situation between Blackwell and Ophelia, and I do wish that sometimes it would skip out on the spice scenes and kind of create more of a like depth between them, more scenes where it seemed like they got to know each other, which they did, but I think it would have been better off instead of just having the spice. It is a little insta-lust-y, which is fine. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. The magical aspect of this is super cool. Her powers as a necromancer is super cool. The world was really fun. I know that there's going to be another standalone book in this series, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think this book was really addicting considering how long it was. I think it was about, let's see, I don't remember off the top of my head. It was about 500 pages, and it didn't read like 500 pages. I read this probably in like 3 or 4 days, really quickly. And initially I think I rated this a 4.75 stars. As always, as you think about it a little more and you think about what was really lacking, I think I would rate this either 4.25 or 4.5 stars. But I highly recommend this one, especially if you like fantasy, or especially if you like, I would say this is mainly a fantasy girl. Like, you have to like fantasy and you have to be okay with spice because this does have a lot of spice in it, and so that's why I would recommend it too. I really enjoyed it though, and overall I would recommend it. I did read The Boyfriend, which I did mention earlier, by Frida McFadden, and I really enjoyed it. It's been a while since I read one of her books. The last one I did read was The Inmate, and I did not enjoy that one. I felt like the plot was just a little, not all over the place, because it wasn't. It was kind of a straight like shot, but I did feel like the book didn't, it just didn't make sense. I felt like the character was too dumb, and while it had those quick chapters that Frida's known for, I didn't love it. I was, you know, over it by the end of it. I feel like there was so many ways that the story could have been better, and so I did not know whether I was gonna love this one or not, and honestly I really enjoyed it. I felt myself, she has, again, the addicting short chapters. The characters, while not likable, you are suspicious of everybody, and you're interested, so it's a dual timeline as well, and you're interested in both timelines, and that's kind of cool in itself, because again, it doesn't always work, but it worked in this one. I will say I didn't guess who, you know, it's a thriller, who it was, until I want to say like really early on into the end, because even when I thought I was right, I was wrong, as that happens in a thriller. I would rate this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one. I think it gives you exactly what you want in a thriller. Lots of suspects, plot is pretty interesting. It's pretty fun, lots of plot twists, and the chapters make you keep wanting to read more. So 4 stars overall, great read. Then I did read The Breakup Tour. I needed something fluffy again in between some of the heavier books in my, like, the month. This is I want to say it's a Taylor Swift inspired romance. This is written by Emily Wimberly and Austin Siegmund Broca. I always get their names wrong. Honestly, this kind of gave me the Roughest Draft vibes. I mentioned this literally last video. I really like books where the characters are writers, and in this one the characters are songwriters, which I really enjoyed. There are moments where I felt like I wanted more scenes between the characters, but I feel like they have such a good job of writing really good books in a short book. I love their writing, especially their adult romances. I really enjoyed them. I do wish that there weren't so many silly arguments and silly, like, the third act breakup was a little silly in my opinion. I felt like they had a conversation again, this could have all been resolved, and that's not really what happened. I do really like the female main character, who was our Taylor Swift. Her name was Riley, and she spoke so much about the songwriting process, the way that she writes, the way she performs every night, the way she why she writes as honestly as she does, and it was really good. I was surprised that I liked this one as much. I would rate this either a 3.75 or 4 stars. I do think it was it's still kind of fluffy, so it wasn't like, you know, super heavy, but their writing in itself, I love almost everything they do writing wise, so I would rate this a 4 stars. Then Then I had two more like ebooks that I read throughout the month. I read The Co-op by Tara DeWitt, and I think I will throne her as one of the best romance slow burn authors. This was really good. I don't think people, so I didn't like Funny Story, and I don't know if I've ever mentioned this here. That's a really famous book of hers, and I did not like it, especially because I read Savor It first, which I really liked. Again, it's super slow burn. It's a really, like, you truly get to know each other, you truly reconnect, you truly have conversations, and this one was really similar. I also think this was a re-release, so she wrote this one a while back and then re-released it once so she's published now, and she is 100% the queen of slow burns. I mean, in a good way, not slow burn where you're just like annoyed. So this is a second chance romance dual timeline, because it does give you past and present, and it follows, oh my god, what's the names of the characters? I always mess this up. This follows Lauren, who used to, so she has a very dysfunctional family, and she would spend like the summer, sometimes the holidays, at her grandma's house, and her grandmother ended up marrying this woman who used to be a tenant at her house. She used to have like a multi-family house, and so she got married to one of her tenants, and her tenant had a grandson named Deacon, and so they would spend maybe from the ages of like 13 up occasionally seeing each other until when they were younger they ended up dating, like I want to say at like 18 or 19, because he's a little bit older, I don't remember, he's like 3 years older, and so they ended up dating in high school, and you never end up finding out what happens, of course, until you continue reading, but their grandmothers both end up passing away, and in the wills the house is in both of their names, and so Lauren ends up going to move back to her grandmother's old house, and they end up deciding that they're going to remodel it and try to sell the house afterwards, because what are they going to do, you know? There's a tenant in the bottom floor, and they can't both live in the upstairs, neither of them have the money, like it needs so much work, and so they decide they're going to fix this house up together, put aside their differences, and sell it once the house is finished. And so of course they left on terrible terms because they were broken up, and they really had rarely seen each other, or maybe never had seen each other since they broke up at 18 or 19, and now about 10 years have passed. And so it's really fun to see them going from like this huge dislike, because again they are exes, to being friendly and learning to become friends again, to potentially more, and the friendships in this, the past timeline of figuring out, getting to know the grandmothers and their family circumstances, and you get dual POV, so you get both perspectives of what's going on at all times. And honestly, it was just it's so good. She does a really good job again of talking about these human emotions and being human and being vulnerable, learning to communicate properly, being healthy, and being healthy in a relationship. It's not as easy as everyone thinks, you know. You have to work on yourself, and then you have to put in the work also to make your relationship healthy. And I really, really enjoyed this one. Again, this is the copy that I got an ARC for, and I will be adding it to my physical library probably sometime next year. I'm trying not to buy any books till the year is over, and so it will definitely be a book I buy next year. I would rate this one a 4.5 stars. Finally, I did end up reading Is She Really Going Out With Him by Sophie Cousins. Sophie is so interesting because I feel like she is a good writer, but I also feel like her plots are a little strange, and they're not always, I don't know. It's really, this one I enjoyed. It is about a older woman who had just recently gotten divorced about a year ago or so, and so her ex-husband has a new girlfriend, and she's just trying to find herself because she just puts her life into her kids and her job, and it's basically her relearning to find herself in this situation and relearning how to fall in love, and I mean even protect her job because her job is in danger. And it's really fun. It is a age gap romance. It is a very heavy on the self-discovery. I did enjoy this one better than The Good Part, which is the last book I read. I do feel like sometimes things were lacking and it went a little quickly, but I did enjoy. I love the aspects of people getting a new beginning in life later in life. You know, she was like in her late 30s. I think she was like 37 or 38, and she was starting over, finding new hobbies, making friends, doing things again, not just living for her kids and her job, even falling in love with her job again, and finding a new appreciation for her ex-husband, finding a new appreciation for herself and all that she does and everything that she is. It was really nice. I don't know what I would rate this one. I don't remember what I rated it initially. Let's look, because I don't remember. I ended up rating it a 3.5 stars. So that kind of tells you there was just something lacking, even with all the greatness, because again, there's certain things that I just really enjoy in books. Especially as I get older, I think I appreciate more, you know, just older age characters with a different mindset of thinking. And while this had a lot of things going for it, it also wasn't my favorite, and you know, it was just okay. I would rate it a 3.5 stars. And my current read is Magnolia Park's Into, is it Long Way Home or is it Into the Dark? I already forgot. It's Long Way Home, sorry. So that's my current read. That's what I'm reading right now. And I'm about 150 pages in. It is destroying me, as Jessa Hastings does with all of her books that I've read so far. So I probably will read that throughout December. But that's really what I read throughout November. It was a pretty successful month. I think I read a lot of books without really trying to, and that's kind of cool. And so yeah, I'm back. I did have to take a few weeks off. The election, you know, I didn't get what I wanted, which is fine, and I definitely had to mourn, and you know, it's just been a little challenging to hop back into the normalness of it all, but I'm back. And I'm ready to, you know, hop into this. But I'm excited to do Vlogmas with you. I've never done it before. I have a blog, and I did do, what is it called? The Vlogmas. And that was so challenging. I did it 25 posts, and that was a lot of work. I did it literally the first year I started doing my blog. So for me to now jump into this into YouTube, which I think is a lot more time consuming, I'm excited. I'm gonna do 12 videos. So I'm not committing to the full 24. Some people do, like, you know, the whole bookmas of 24 videos. I will do 12, and you will see me a lot this coming month. But these are the physical books. A lot of books as always. I mean, actually the physical, there's not that many. There's 5. But I think I read about 10 books. I did not end up reading, which, let me see, let's go over it again. I did not end up reading The Housemaid is Watching. I didn't end up reading The God in the Woods. I didn't end up reading One Dark Window. But I did add The Boyfriend, and I did add Phantasma, so it balanced out. And I didn't finish Magnolia Parks, but that's fine. It's in the middle. It's in the process. And so, oops, here we are. We'll talk very soon. Bye, guys.